How's it going, y'all? Time Smash MTG. Today we're back with some more MTGA Kaldheim deck action. Now, today's episode is a little bit different because I'm taking user-submitted decks and showing them off. So, people who've submitted decks to me on Instagram, on Twitter, on my Discord, on YouTube comments, going to be showing off some of y'all's lists today. I think I got to everybody's on there. I had 11 of them, so we'll be showing 11 decks. I didn't show all of them, I guess, because some of y'all submitted like 10. John Ramos, and I'm not showing that many, but I just wanted to show these off, give credit to who made these decks. At least that's what you think. Actually, this whole video is great because now I get to take credit for all these decks and say that I created them and I made them. So, without further ado, here are my creations, if they're good at least, my creations for Kaldheim decks. And if they suck, then yeah, we'll give credit to whoever the other people were. But no, for real, thank y'all for submitting these. Really appreciate all the support. Closing in on the early access, Wednesday, 27th, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We've been playing a lot of New Standard. I'm reinvigorated in Magic right now. I'm ready to play some games. Let's hope it stays that way, baby, because I like the feeling. Let's go. Anyways, deck number one is a deck by our friend Gingerbeard Man Gaming. Let's check it out. Let's go. All right, so first deck of the day here is Sultai Snowlings by Gingerbeard Man. One of my good buddies in the channel sent this to me on Discord. If you haven't checked him out already, he has some YouTube stuff, does some Twitch stuff and streams. Good old lovable guy. But this is some Sultai Snowlings. Now, you'll see I'm not doing the whole fancy. I only get the fancy background for my stuff with the moving background. This, we're just looking at the links y'all sent. Which is one reason to bring up. You see how nice this looks compared to other things when we get the Scryfall? If y'all are using Scryfall or tapped out, quit it. Because Aether Hub's the way to go, baby. And follow me on Aether Hub if you want to. Anyway, Sultai Snowlings. Let's take a look at the deck hits, what they have here. Basically, you're just playing a lot of either changelings or shapeshifters, these things that can become anything. A lot of snow permanents in this deck. Using the spicy Saga here, which we'll get to. We'll go ahead and get into this a little bit. Let's take a look at it. At the 1-drop slot, Blizzard Brawl. Playing some of this removal here because we got a bunch of snow lands. If we look, scroll down here. Pretty much all of your lands are either snow lands. We have some World Tree action in here too, which is spicy. So yeah, Blizzard Brawl, just a good little removal spell for 1 mana is nice. A whole playset of Absorb Identity. Return target creature to its owner's hand. You may have shapeshifters you control become copies of that creature until end of turn. Now that is a very, very spicy, weird card. But you got to think here, there's enough shapeshifters in this deck already, which you get a lot of triggers off of that. And if you're playing Masswood Nexus, everything's kind of a shapeshifter. So that you know, say the opponent they drop down a Elder Gargaroth, for instance, they got a 6/6. Well, your turn, you just pass a turn, Absorb Identity on that Gargaroth, you bounce it, and then all of your shapeshifters become Gargaroths, you swing in, spicy. I like that, actually. Whole playset here is Sculptor of Winter, untap target snowland here, it's just a little mana dork. Glasspool Mimic, make a copy of whatever you need to. It's also a shapeshifter by default, or land if you need it. Jorn, doing Jorn things. Realm Walker, doing Realm Walker things. One that I love here, the Bears of the Lijata, which I'm probably saying wrong, like I do, you know, it's because I'm a redneck and can't talk, apparently. Chapter 1, create a 2/2 blue shapeshifter creature token with Changeling. Chapter 2, any number of target shapeshifter creatures you control can have base power and toughness of 4/4. Chapter 3, choose up to 1 target creature or planeswalker. Each creature with power 4 greater you control deals damage equal to its power to that permanent. So the 1 here, you make it a creature. The 2, you're getting buffed up to a 4/4 alongside all of your other ones. Chapter 3 is removal on something there. Nice card. I can see why it's a 4 of. Pretty spicy. 2 of Masswood Nexus here, making everything into Changeling and Shapeshifters is really cool. And it's a way to be able to have a mana sink if you don't draw anything good to make more. Is awesome. Very spicy card here is Orvar the Old Form. 4 mana, 3/3 Changeling. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, if it targets 1 or more of those permanents you control, create a token that's a copy of those permanents. When a spell or ability an opponent controls causes you to discard a card, create a token that's a copy of target permanent. Orvar can do some crazy things. I'm not going to get into all the crazy things it can do because that's a whole other video in itself. But my man, Gingerbeard, I'm ready to see this kind of thing happen. This is super spicy. Finishing off the deck here with Moritte of the Frost, just another Changeling shapeshifter that can be a copy of whatever it needs to be. And finally, 3 Narfi and 1 little blood on the snow if you need to just get rid of something, bring something else back, all that kind of goodness there. Like I said, mana base here is mostly snowlands and the World Tree. Yeah, this is pretty spicy. Gingerbeard Man with this deck, so if you like this deck, go check him out. He's got some good stuff. Let's move on to deck number 2. Alright, so deck number 2 is Tergrid, God of Steal Your Shit. by Patty Gates. Now, I'm not going to say the top name of it anymore because I don't want to get demonetized. I don't know how YouTube does all this. But let's take a look at this deck. Basically, as you can see here, this is removal / discard / sacrifice things .deck. This is kind of cool too. So, 1-drop slot here, playing 2 of Duress, whole playset of Acquisitions Expert, and 2 Croxus. So right there in the 1 and 2-drop slot is nothing but just hand disruption, which is really nice because you still get this on some proactive creatures to play, whether it be Croxus or Acquisitions Expert. But if you just curve Duress into one of these, you've already just disrupted so much of what their early game plan may have been that you just piss them off right there and they leave. A whole playset of Elspeth's Nightmare, removal on Chapter 1, another hand disruption on Chapter 2, and finally exile in the graveyard of the opponent can be nice on Chapter 3. A whole playset of Pelaka Predation. Personally, I don't love this card, but just having it be able to be a land or being able to make them discard a card to convert a mana cost 3 or greater is good. So obviously we see what Patty Cakes is going for here, just a bunch of hand disruption. He's a nice guy too, so you wouldn't think he'd be doing all this shenanigans with stealing stuff, but by golly, here he is. Patty Cakes, Baker's man. 3 mana slot, we also have some Soul Shatter, a card that's not really seen much play, but is very cool. Love that art too. With 3 mana instant, each opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker with highest converted mana cost among creatures and planeswalkers they control. So you just kind of control the board with early removal spells and hand disruption. The opponent finally get to get that big creature down. Soul Shatter, get out of here. Going along with the sacrifice theme as well. Doom Foretold, obviously, we know what that does. A 3 of Eradicator Valkyrie, a card that's not really been talked about much, but it's a cool card. 4 mana, 4/3 flyer, flying, lifelink, hexproof, and planeswalkers, and it has boast for 1 and a black to sack a creature. Each opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker. Very cool there. Top of the curve here, Extinction Event is a 3 of. Kaldheim's Vicious Return is a 2 of. That's a little bit hot. 2 red and black Saga. Chapter 1, you may sacrifice a creature. When you do, Kaldheim's Vicious Return deals 3 damage to any target. Chapter 2, each player discards a card. He's just keeping on theme here with all his discard. Chapter 3, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Put a +1/+1 counter on it and gains haste until your next turn. That's pretty cool there. I like that. There's multiple ways to either get things in the graveyard that you want to have or just to reanimate whatever you need here. So, cool card there. 3 of Rankle. And finally, what the deck is named after. A whole playset of, is it Tergrid or Tergrid? Tergrid? We're going to call it Tergrid, God of Fright. This is a 5 mana 4/5 menace. When an opponent sacrifices a non-token permanent or discards a permanent card, you may put that card from the graveyard on the battlefield under your control. I gotta say, I have never been, not fussed at, that's not the right word, but every person that talked about my Doom Foretold list, they were like, bro, you didn't put in Tergrid. I'm sorry. I think this card is very cool. A 4/5 body is nice, but it's a 5 mana that technically doesn't do anything when it enters the battlefield. And I'm just a little bit lower on that, but obviously I can see why it can be good. Also, it does have that backside real quick before we go. Tergrid's Lantern, 4 mana legendary artifact. Tap it, target player loses 3 life unless they sacrifice a non-land permanent or discard a card. 4 mana to untap. Yeah, that's what this deck is here. The last card here is a 5 mana Tergrid Shadow. You can foretell this for 2 and then pay 4 mana. It's an instant. Each player sacrifices 2 creatures. I think this deck is really neat. My only concern about it is you have a few things, whether it be Eradicator Valkyrie or Tergrid Shadow, where you're really wanting to be able to sacrifice your own creatures. And you don't seem to have a lot of ways to enable that in this deck. Otherwise, I like what you're doing. You're just picking the hand apart and making the opponent real mad, killing their stuff, and finally getting all these big, beady threats down. So, cool deck here. Patty Cakes. Check him out on Twitch. One of my favorite streamers to watch whenever I actually get a chance to. Good deck. Let's go look at another. Let's go. Alright, so deck number 3 here is Kaldheim Simic Idea. Very fancy name, John. My buddy John Ramos, MTG. If you haven't checked him out, he's on Twitch pretty often, playing a lot of these Star City satellite things and qualifying tournaments. The man likes to play these tournaments, and he's good at it too. So if you're looking for somebody who's really methodical and just good at learning the game from, John is fantastic. And follow him on Twitter. Solid guy. Even though he's a jerk sometimes, he's speaking to me. It's okay. But basically what this deck does, and he can explain it a lot better than I can, but this is a Simic deck that plays a lot of either just little cheap creatures or some interesting spells like Inscription of Abundance. But basically you want to be able to have Jorn, God of Winter down, or use Cosima for all this kind of stuff. But you want Jorn down to attack in, when you have that untapped trigger on the step, you can use Inscription of Abundance to fight the creatures and do all the things on this rather early in the game. So you're getting to do a lot of stuff here. It's playing a whole playset of Kasima, because not only does Azusa and there's 2 Dryad Elysian Grove, they also let you play extra lands. So you're hoping to just like flood all these different lands on the battlefield, either with Kasima in exile or with the Omen Kill out on the other side there, and just be able to ramp up and play all these stuff. And that way, once you get your ramp up like this, you just have so much power and things that you can do here. Mana base is mostly just snow-covered stuff and a couple of pathways, nothing too crazy there. Between Kasima doing its thing, Jorn doing its thing, making sure that you get to return this stuff back to the battlefield, there's a lot of really cool stuff that you can do with this list. Ascendant Spirit really gets to actually do some work and get big here, because you have the mana investment in this stuff where you're ramping so much. And this is it's just an interesting deck that you don't usually think to see Seagate Stormcaller in. Usually you think of Seagate Stormcaller, you're going to have that with a deck with a lot of removal and things like that. But in this one, it's just more of a unique strategy here. So, again, I don't really have much to say about this one, just because it's a very odd and weird deck that I know I can't get justice to. John can really explain just the overall basis of how it does all of its things here. But it's a neat deck with a lot of different things going on, between you're getting some good aggressive plays from it, with Ascendant Spirit and doing all this stuff, Inscription of Abundance, growing your creatures, fighting things, getting them out of the way. And then not to mention, obviously, you have the Adventure package with Edgewall Innkeeper, with Brazen Bar, with Lovestruck Beast. So you're just drawing cards and kind of keeping that engine going there. It's a very cool deck. I like this one. John, good work, buddy. Like it, love it, want some more of it. I try so hard, I can't rise above it. Let's look at another one. Alright, so next deck here is 5-color Asika World Tree by MTG Joe. Most people who follow my channel probably know Joe, but if you don't, check him out on everywhere, really. The guy streams, he does a lot of YouTube content, he's super popular on Twitter because he's so handsome. But this is 5-color Asika World Tree here. This is basically a Teamer Ultimatum shell where you're ramping a whole bunch. You have things like Lotus Cobra. Asika helps ramp with its front side. The back side has a spicy little enchantment there where you can flip that enchantment over. Just a lot of cool things you're doing here. Masswood Nexus making everything a god technically means that the World Tree can be online, which is a whole playset in this thing as well. But just a very interesting deck. This is like a God's World Tree list combined with Genesis Ultimatum, which I think is really cool. For those of you who don't know Asika or have missed out on that one, 3 mana, 1/4 with Vigilance. Tap it to add 1 mana of any color, and other legendary creatures you control have Vigilance and tap. So that way you can have things like your Cosmic Coma, which I guess if you get to your Coma, you don't really need to worry about ramping at that point. But between that, the Cultivate, the Beanstalk Giant, the Lotus Cobra, there's so much ramp in this shell that you can get up to that Genesis Ultimatum decently fast. I wish this had Kasima in it. I think this would be a great Kasima shell as well. It kind of rhymes. But yeah, you do cool Genesis Ultimatum stuff here. You ramp like crazy. You still have removal and your Bone Crusher Giants and Shadow Skull Smashing, or, just Terror of the Peaks does removal things on its own. And Terror of the Peaks with Masswood Nexus is actually kind of cool, because you can start just pinging them for 2 every single turn with that bottom part of the card. So that's really neat there. Coma with Terror of the Peaks is really good, as I stated in other videos. And finally, 2 Vugan, just that kind of get a jail free card should you need it. So MTG Joe with the Spice, bringing in that 5-color goodness. Let's go ahead and look at the Secret God of the Tree real quick. That backside of that is the Prismatic Bridge to its Wooburg legendary enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature or planeswalker card. Put that card on the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So you're trying to get this out early on, and with this deck, the way you ramp, you can do so. 5-color shenanigans. This deck just has a lot of cool things going on to it, so I like it. So Joe, good job, my friend. Good job. Alright, so we're going to look at these in whatever order they submitted them in. So, again, y'all using Scryfall, I'm sure it's great for, like, data and whatnot, but there's no visual view. And when I export these to AetherHub or another site, it doesn't pick them up right because of the way Scryfall does things. So Scryfall sucks. Basically what we got here is some stir-fried chocolate aggro. This is I don't understand because it's Gruul, but very cool Gruul list. I like that it's Gruul Monsters instead of Gruul Adventures. I get tired of Gruul Adventures. But they're playing 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 different 2-drops here between Brushfire, Lotus Cobra's getting some play here, and Tangleflora Hedron. This kind of wants to ramp up to these bigger creatures, which is really cool. So you're still playing your Bone Crusher Giants and Stomps. One of Arnie Broken Bro, which is pretty cool. I think that actually works really well to a Gruul shell. Being able to boast that for the 1 mana and change your power to the toughest thing or the biggest thing on the battlefield which in some cases can be like a 6/6. That's pretty cool. So I like that. You can also use Garruk Unleashed to give something +3/+3, and then attack with Arnie and play 1. Now, obviously, you have to have all this stuff on the battlefield already, but it's a cool little synergy there, and I like that. Kazandu Mammoth, obviously a playset. Lovestruck Beast, obviously a playset. Questing Beast, obviously a playset. Let's talk about the new cards here. 4 Goldspan Dragon and 2 Vorinclex Monstrous Raider. So basically just going big Gruul here, still doing the Embercleave and Great Henge stuff. Otherwise, not a lot really changes here. 14 lands, 18, so it's only 20 lands. That's a little bit light for something that plays as heavy in mana, but still, there's some cool things going on in this here. I love Goldspan Dragon. I'm not sure if it's, I mean, if I feel like if I'm playing Goldspan Dragon, I probably want to have like some removal or pump spells to pump on it a little bit. But still, just target that with Embercleave. You're also making a treasure token, which is kind of cool. So, I don't know. I think this is a very cool list. I like what Lanier's doing here. I like the overall idea of a bigger, stronger Gruul list. Stuff like Fabled Passage with Kazandu Mammoth and like Arnie seems very cool here to me. There's just so many different ways you can boast this and make it out to work and do some special stuff here. So even though this is like a little bit weird of a list here, trust me when I say Lanier knows the dude knows what he's doing when it comes to Gruul. So I would trust his word more than I'd even trust mine on Gruul, and I feel like that's saying something for some people. Cool list here though. Scryfall sucks. Alright, so next up here we got some Saga to the Grave by our buddy Levdev at Brewing Labs. A great follower on Twitter, just a good, nice dude. Does some streaming, does some videos, even does a little podcast action now and then, so check him out. But basically, this is a very cool little combo deck, and I don't want to go over the whole deck here because it's kind of wild. But basically, what you're trying to do is you play things like your Mire Triton to get things in the graveyard, playing a whole playset of Herald Unites the Elves helps you mill. There's a few things in here that just make you mill or do things. The backside of Egon God of Death on that 1-mana artifact can make you mill. But long story short, what you're trying to do with this deck is you're trying to have, at the very least, I think you have to have 2 Moritte the Frost in the graveyard, because you want to have 2 of these to make this combo work. But if you get 2 of these in the graveyard, and then either have 1 Thassa's Oracle on the battlefield, or have one like enough mana where you can cast one of these, all you do is play Herald Unites the Elves. You mill your 4 cards. You get back Moritte of the Frost, which become a copy of any permanent. You have it become a copy of Herald Unites the Elves, in which case you mill 4, and then you get that other Moritte of the Frost. And basically you keep looping these over and over and over, making each one become a copy, and they have to sacrifice themselves to the legend rule. But basically you keep on making copies of all this until you milled all of your deck out, and then from there use that final mana to either cast Thassa's Oracle, or you already have it on the battlefield and just win the game, because your last copy, instead of making a copy of Herald Unites the Elves, we'll just make a copy of Thassa's Oracle. So this is like a very spicy little combo here that can just win a game out of nowhere. All these other cards kind of just go along to enabling that combo and making it work, while still doing some pretty proactive things here. Like here, King Narfi's Betrayal, 3 mana. Each player knows 4 cards. So you're doing a lot of really cool stuff in this deck, and I think it's super neat. You also have this Maskwood Nexus where if you need to, everything is an elf, so your Herald can go grab anything if you don't have that kind of combo set online. So I don't know, it's a very cool and interesting deck, and I'm a fan of it. So I think this is very neat to see. I'm looking forward to see this happen and early on in the season and see what people can do with it. Let's go to another one. Alright, so next up we got some Red-Green Monsters once again in Kaldheim. This is from user Tic Tac on Tapped Out. Again, maybe Tapped Out has, but I can't seem to find a visual view of all this stuff, which is why Aether Hub is better. But I'm going to quit barking about that. This deck is really nice though. Let's look at the things here. We have a 1-of Gilded Goose in the 1-drop slot here, which is nice. 2-drop slot, you have some Dragonkin Berserker, which is a neat little card. 2/2 with first strike, and that first strike, that first strike can be very relevant there. Being able to make big dragons as you go along the game is super nice, so I dig that. You're still playing your Bonecrusher Giants here. Playset a Goldspan Dragon. You know I love me some of the dragons. So again, though, the only thing I see here is there's not ways to target the dragon. This is a 4/4 flying haste, which in some cases can be good enough already. I just feel like if you're playing Goldspan Dragon, you do want to target it with things. Kazandu Mammoth, 2-of Magda Brazen Outlaw, 4-of Rimrock Knight, which is another dwarf to trigger that, which is nice. So you got a few different neat little synergies here for sure. Toski, Barrier of Secrets. I love this card, so I'm very happy to see somebody else playing it. Playing a whole playset of it, that seems a little steep, but it's kind of cool. Shattered Skulls Charger. A card that I've tried a few times and just end up always never really loving it to death. But there have been times where I've top decked this and been able to win a game, so it has moments where it can just do really, really well. Lands are 17, 18, 19, 20. So again, y'all skimping on the lands now. Y'all getting a little risky with this. But finally, 4 of In Search of Greatness. I didn't even see this, honestly, when I was looking at this. 4 of In Search of Greatness, which is kind of cool because you can go Gilded Goose on 1, play this on 2, and then from there you can get you a free Dragonkin Berserker and start working up the chain here. So you see we have... that's not even good view. This tapped out's just not very good, I don't think. But this is a very cool list. I like this. An experiment that moves away from adventures to see if In Search of Greatness is a decent alternative. Shatterskull Charger seems great with the enchantment because we can play it for free and have it returned to our hand. Ooh, that's kind of cool, actually. I like that spice now that I see that. That's pretty cool. And the card draw comes from creatures. Okay. Cool deck. I like this. I mean, I like overall what this is doing. I think obviously, as we can see here, there's a couple of different ways to build Gruul, and as a Gruul fan, you know I like that. Let's go ahead and look at another. Alright, so we got 4 decks to go here. Next one is Mono Red Dwarves and Dragons by John D. Patrick. So I appreciate you showing me this deck, John. This is a very neat one here. Obviously, this is a Magda Brazen Outlaw deck. We're playing a whole playset of that in here. It's Dwarves and Dragons. What can we say? Playing 2 Biggery. Biggery is not a dwarf, but the fact that it's just a neat little card. The one that I slept on a little bit early on, but I'm kind of coming around on this card the more I look at it. The backside I don't love at all. But Biggery, God of Storytelling, 3 mana, 3/3. Whenever you cast a spell, add red mana until the end of turn. You don't lose mana as steps and phases in. Creatures you control can boast twice during each of your turns rather than once, which is very nice with Dragonkin Berserker because you can do, obviously just make 2. Making 2 dragons seems pretty good there. Playing a whole playset of Gadrick, the Crown Scourge. This is a 3 mana, 5/4 flyer. It can't attack unless you control 4 more artifacts. At the beginning of your end step, create a treasure token for each non-token creature that died this turn. So if they're using removal and other things, Gadrick starts making some treasures for you, and eventually between Magda, you're trying to have enough treasures here where you can just get this 3 mana creature in attacking, which is nice. 3 Goldspan Dragon, I like it, and I think in this kind of deck where you can ramp it out a little bit, you don't need that interaction that points to it as much, though I would still like to see that. You got the Magda, you got your Rimrock Knight, you have a whole playset of Torbran. It's a dwarf, which is nice, but also making all of your creatures do all that extra damage is super, super good. Finally, whole playset of Vault Robber. This is it's a dwarf. 2 mana, 1/3, pay 1 and tap it to exile a creature card from your graveyard, create a treasure token. So this actually does kind of nice work here with Magda because you're tapping it, which makes a treasure from Magda, but you're also making a treasure from this ability. So even though it's a pretty unassuming and not very exciting creature, it still gets the job done for what you want to do. Spicy little 2 of Dwarven Mine here is also nice if you control 3 or more mountains, so that's pretty cool. Otherwise, you're playing your Frostbite because you have 16 snow sources. Whole playset of Shatterskull Smashing. So this actually plays 24 lands. We got a mono red player playing 24 lands, and some of you Gruul boys only playing 20. For shame, for shame. Well, actually, I guess there was more than that because of Kazandu Mammoth. Maybe I'm an idiot. Just ignore me. Finally, the top end, Embercleave is a 4 of. This deck's neat. It does some cool things. I don't expect anything like this to be tier 1, but I like what it's doing. I like seeing these kind of things. So, John D. Patrick, thank you for showing me your deck, my friend. Let's look at another list. Let's go. Finally, back on the beauty that is Aether Hub. Just see how smooth and pretty that is. Some Mono Green Devotion by Crazy Chimp. I like it. So they are playing a 2-up Blizzard Brawl and a whole playset of Jaspera Sentinel, which I think is a card that may just be better than I'd given it credit for. So it's a 1 mana, 1/2 with reach. You tap it and tap an untapped creature you control to add 1 mana of any color. So technically it's a 1 mana mana dork. It just needs a little bit of help here. But you can do, you play this, then they also play 3 of Surfair and the Hingehammer. So you do have a way on turn 2 to make that extra mana. More likely, you're just wanting to go Jaspera Sentinel on 1 and 2 In Search of Greatness on 2. Whole playset of that. And as you see, we kind of just go up the curve here. At 3 mana, we have the Kazandu Mammoth. We have 2 Cloythus, which even though it's mono green, there's still a little red splash in here. Jaspera Sentinel can make a mana of any color, or In Search of Greatness can put that Cloythus out with a 2-drop. So, spicy there. Whole playset of Old Growth Troll, a card that I kind of just forgot about after being super high on it early on in the season. I know it's not super exciting, but it just does so much good stuff, and it's a 3 mana 4/4 trample with a lot of upside, so that's great. 1 Yorvo because we needed more triple green cards in the deck, and it's just another thing for In Search of Greatness to grab, which, being serious, is a good thing. Playing 3 of Garruk Unleashed, getting a free Planeswalker seems pretty nice with In Search of Greatness. You can also get Nylea the Keen-Eyed to make your creatures cost 1 less to cast, and it can easily, in this deck, be an actual creature if its devotion's high enough, so I think that's really good. Finally, moving up the curve, at the 5-drop slot, you have your Elder Gargaros. At the 6-drop slot, your Vorinclex. And finally, at the very top of the curve, by then, you can just cast the thing anyway, but the Great Henge. So, that is Mono Green Devotion. Crazy Chimp. I think this deck is sweet. This is probably one of the better shells. I think In Search of Greatness, even though I'm trying to do Jund Superfan things, this is maybe the way to go about it. So, I like this deck. Very good work on this one, my friend. Good job. Let's look at another deck. So next up here is Luca's Ravens by JSager99, and I gotta say, I got showed this one when I posted my video of all these other standard decks for Kaldheim, and I was like super in love with this one. Now granted, I'm a sucker for Luca decks, even though I rarely ever play them. But basically, as you can see here, it's a Luca deck, so you're using Transmorgify and Luca to try to cheat out and get early and cheap and just super easy Dream Trawlers out in the battlefield. So most of the deck here is Forbidden Friendship and playing other enablers like that. Played a whole playset of Mystic Reflection here, which is super cool because you can use Mystic Reflection on one of your many of your just dopey little creatures. Excuse me, but say you have this 0-4 wall out, they play their big creature, you say, nah, son, you get this 0-4, I get that good creature. So that's pretty cool there. Raven form is both nice removal, a way to foretell things if you need to, and just giving them a little crappy bird is nice. The Ravens warning here, though, is one that really warrants talking about because of the sideboard plan here. Because if you look at the sideboard, this is kind of crazy looking. So Chapter 1, create a 2/2 Bluebird token with flying. You gain 2 life. Chapter 2, whenever a creature with flying deals damage, you draw a card and look at that player's hand. Okay. Chapter 3, you may put a card you own from outside the game on top of your library. You do that, and then you set that up, because by then you kind of have the chapters to wait, you've been able to set this up in your hand. At that point, once you know exactly what's on top of your library, you use Transmorgify, you use Luca, you go grab, maybe you grab a Baneslayer Angel, maybe you grab Elder Gargaroth, maybe you grab Kogla, maybe you grab Master Worm. All kinds of spicy good stuff here to grab. So this deck is doing a whole lot of cool stuff here. You still have your Shadow of the Skies if you need to, kind of reset the board, start all over. But yeah, this deck's doing some cool stuff. My only big concern about it is I feel like there should be at least 1 Dream Trawler more, maybe even a whole playset, just because if the 2 die or you get board wiped or something, then you're kind of relying on just really dopey, mopey creatures to get the job done for you. But still, as a whole, I think this deck is sweet and does a lot of cool stuff, so I love things like this. So that is Luca's Ravens by JSager99. Very cool deck, my friend. Well done. One more deck to go here. Let's look at some Izzet Giants. So lastly here, Izzet Giants by Rakdos Tergrid, submitted on MTG Goldfish, which I can get by this. It's a little bit smaller than what I like, but it all fits on the screen, which is cool. So yeah, this is another good way to do this if y'all are doing this. MTG Goldfish, Aether Hub are my 2 suggested ones for sure. So basically this is just I can't talk. It's Izzet Giants. And this is doing some neat stuff here because it kind of plays like a control deck that just happens to play Giants as your finishers. So you see here, you have your Bonecrusher Giants playing some Solemn Soul Necrum, I guess just a ramp, which is cool. A whole playset of Quakebringer, 3 Agar, some Calamity Bearer, even some Torolf, God of Fury there. Which is cool because you have things like Squash, so all that extra damage going somewhere else with that 6 damage is nice. Things like Tundra Fumarole, which is a 3 mana, deals 4 damage to target creature or planeswalker, and then you add a colorless mana for each snow cast spent to cast this. Until the end of turn, you don't lose mana, its steps and phases end. So, nice card in these kind of shells if you need to use that 3 mana, kill something, and then you get that mana right back depending on what mana you tap for it. It's super cool. But what this deck wants to do, from what it seems, is kind of control the board early with these removal and bigger creatures. Get your big creatures online, and then from there you have Mystical Disputes, you have Solid Coming. You have ways to kind of control the battlefield and just have a tempo little game going on while you beat them down. So, Izzet Giants there. Personally, I still think it's just almost a free splash to go to that 3rd color for one of these, so I feel like that's the way to go. But if you're going to say Izzet, this is a neat and interesting way to do it. I know myself, I don't have great luck when I try to play these decks that have like control and like, I guess this is kind of tempo, but it's just a very big tempo, so not really tempo either. This deck's trying to do a little bit of everything, but I think it's a cool way to do it. So, is it good? Who knows? It may be hot garbage. It may be great. But that's why we play the cards. So that's what we're looking at. So let's go ahead, just overall recap these decks one more time. Bigger screen Daniel in the middle. Let's go. So that's what we got here. My user submitted decks. Thank you every single one of you who submitted decks for this. Much appreciated. I enjoyed looking at these. Always enjoy seeing other things that people brew up and come up with. Lastly, as I keep saying, early access event, come out and watch it. It'll be a lot of fun. Thank you all for support. Probably going to be going back, as you've noticed here, to going a video every other day now instead of every 3 days. We'll see how long we keep up on that. I've got the school semester starting back, which means my work life, being in IT, gets kind of strenuous and crazy, but we try to keep up with it. Thank you all for watching. Thank you so much for support. Love y'all. Let's go. Kaldheim hype. Forget I even did that.